want to talk about self-care this morning. Good morning. I hope you guys are having a fabulous time. Make sure that you share this, invite your friends, because I have something to share with you in regards to self-care. Self-care is something that is crucial. It's definitely crucial. And I think we have a misinterpretation of what self care is. So I just wanted to talk to you guys about it. I'm Dr. J. Bliss, a relationship and intimacy coach, as well as a trauma awareness coach and romance erotica author. So, self care is just something I advocate with any and everything that I do because self care is a lifestyle. And when you even meet my characters in my stories, you see that I make sure that I emphasize self care. So, without further ado, I'm just going to get into it. For those who participate, I appreciate it. I love you, and I ask that you just share this content with someone. I will also post this on my YouTube later so you can share it with others and tap into it at a later time. But at any rate, this is just what's on my heart. And so I wanted to go ahead and share it with you. Self care has a false interpretation. So that's why I wanted to expound on it. So I am curious, what is self care to you? Have you ever, have you like pinned down that particular answer? What is self care for you? What does self care look like for you? Okay, I'm getting some more people in. I asked the question, what does self care look like for you? And you post down below and tell me what self care looks like to you. Okay, I'm looking. All right, I'm not seeing any comments. So I guess I should just go ahead and get to talking because I do see that there are some people there. So it might be that you guys don't have the ability to message right now, which is perfectly fine. But I do encourage you, make sure you send me roses. I appreciate it throughout this broadcast. So at any rate, most don't know how to love themselves, but they do prioritize loving others, which clarifies why many don't even have an understanding of what self-care really is. They don't have an understanding of what self-care is, and there's no value as to what self-care is as well. Self-care is truly about you connecting with yourself. I do so much self-care. I spend a lot of time in nature because I connect with myself in nature, which is why I thought it would be ideal for me to be in the backyard because it's amongst nature. So when we lack self-care, we're actually disconnecting from ourselves. Yeah. So I want to welcome all those that are just joining and ask you to share and invite your friends as we talk about self-care this morning, the importance, how crucial self-care is. So what I was saying was self-care is connecting with self, and lack of self-care is disconnecting with self. Disconnecting from your source of growth disconnects you from your strength as well. And it's your potential strength that you're being disconnected from when you're not connected to yourself, when you're not giving yourself the proper self-care that you should. So if I propose to you to love yourself, you must care for yourself. And the act of self-care derives from you liking yourself. What would you actually say? What does, if you have to, would you think that liking yourself has anything to do with self-care? Well, what does liking another person look like to you? You know, before classifying them as your best friend or, like your favorite person, what goes into that decision? How long does it take? How do you even get to know them? It takes time. This is the same formula that you use to get to know yourself. And most people tell me, well, I don't know how to date me. That's a common thing that I hear from people. And I dare to ask them, well, do you even know yourself? Do you know yourself? If you have some friends like this, I encourage you to share this. Make sure you invite them to, join us in the live. And because this is a very important topic. And so, follow me and post below. How are you with dating yourself? Do you date yourself? And do you know how to date yourself? Moving on from there, do you even like yourself? Do you like yourself? What interferes with you liking yourself? Do you have a clue? If you don't like yourself, what's interfering with you liking yourself? Do you have something you might need to release? Good morning, Black Aloe, good morning. So I asked the question, do you like yourself? And if you have a hard time liking yourself, what interferes with you liking yourself? Maybe you have something you want to release. You might be associating something you do or something you don't do with your work. Thank you for the roses. I appreciate those roses. Make sure you invite your friends because we're talking about the topic of self-care and how crucial it is, because so many people have a different interpretation of what self-care is. So I thank you so much for the roses. Keep it up and be sure to encourage and invite your friends to join us as we continue on. So the question I left off with was, do you like yourself? And I want to know, well, how does a likable version of you look? What does this likable version of you look like? What does the likable version of you do, say, eat? What does the likable version, how does the likable version of yourself like to do anything? So does the likable version of yourself like to be around certain people? Does the likable version of yourself choose to love certain people? When you think of this likable version of yourself, what is that likable version of yourself looking like to you? So when you consider, if a person is your favorite person and the person is your best friend, it actually takes time before that person gets classified as your best friend, because you're trying to get to know them and you do different things to get to know them. So liking even yourself, it takes time. Hello, Shotane. Hi, how are you doing? Thank you for joining me. Thank you for those roses. I appreciate it. We are talking about self-care. And so I just asked about if you like yourself. And if you like yourself, post below, let me know that you do like yourself. But I want to move on to the next question. Do you love yourself? Love. Liking yourself takes time. Just like trying to find out if somebody's your favorite person, your best person in your life, that takes time. And because it takes time, you have to be very attentive. You have to spend a lot of time with that person, with yourself, to determine what you like about yourself. You love yourself more. Very good. Very good. So when I left my last relationship, I told the person, I choose to no longer love you. And why is this important to point out? Because love is a choice. It is an absolute choice. And so are you choosing to love yourself? I see Shantae told me that she's loving herself. Thank you guys for joining in. I appreciate these roses. Make sure you share this message with a friend so they can join along as well. Loving yourself is something you have to choose to do every single day. If you're not loving yourself, are you assassinating yourself? Are you self-sabotaging? One of the top things I hear from a person that comes out of a relationship is, I want someone to love me, and I'll love them back. So what does loving another look like? So I have this list. Loving another looks like respecting them, supporting their aspirations, allowing their voice to be heard, paying attention to their health needs, physically, mentally, spiritually, nutritionally. This is important. Championing their story. All of this is loving someone, cherishing time with them, cheering for them. This is loving someone else, treating them with gratitude and appreciation. The one thing that we can fall short of remembering is loving someone means respecting them. So let's look at, well, how does loving me look? How does loving you look? Loving you, does it look like this? Do you respect yourself? Are you supporting your aspirations? Are you allowing your voice to be heard? Do you pay attention to your health needs? Physically, your health needs. Mentally, your health needs. Spiritually, your health needs. Nutritionally, your health needs. Hola, bonjour. I'm doing just fine. God bless you and your family likewise. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Thank you guys for these roses I'm seeing climb up. I appreciate it. Thank you for sharing this information with other people. Invite people, because I'm going to continue talking about self-care. So when we are respecting and when we're loving ourselves, it's very similar to how when we say to ourselves, I want to be in a relationship so this person can love me and I can love them. But I want to establish or get you to see a perspective where you can establish, are you loving yourself the same way that you have conditions for saying, okay, this is how I'm going to love this person. So do you love yourself the way you say you're going to love you? Do you respect you? Are you supporting your aspirations? Do you make sure that your voice is being heard? Do you pay attention to all of your needs mentally, spiritually, physically, nutritionally? Do you champion your story? Do you cherish time with yourself? Do you cheer for you? Do you treat yourself with gratitude and appreciation? That's important. That's extremely important. So as I'm getting older, my hormones are changing. And it impacts my weight, okay? It impacts my weight. But I look in the mirror and I admire my hips. I hadn't had hips like this before. This is different. This is really nice. I'm like, okay. So I've changed the food that I actually intake. It wasn't really difficult because I was very conscientious of the food that I was eating, the way that I was brought up, my parents, they taught me about eating nutritional food. So that wasn't difficult for me. I'm loving the way that I look. And every time I look in the mirror, every time I greet myself, I remind myself that I'm meeting a new version of me. When I go run, when I go hike, I touch on my thighs and I'm like, this is really nice. She's looking good. Yes. I'm embracing every aspect about me because nobody is going to love me the way I love me. No one. You said, yeah, that's what you thought. What I thought. Okay, okay. So now, are you doing this for yourself? Are you loving yourself? Are you admiring yourself, encouraging yourself? This is what you have to do. Thank you for following me. I appreciate you following me, subscribing. I appreciate that. Make sure you invite someone else to hear this message as well. So, are you concerned with giving the job of loving yourself over to another person? Now, when you give this job over to another person, this is dangerous. This is dangerous if you allow another person. If your main job is to, well, I'm gonna get in a relationship because I'm really terrified to love myself. So that's why I want to be in a relationship so they can love me. I'll love them and they can love me. That's not a good thing. That's not a good thing. It says, yeah, because he could leave. The bad thing is if you don't care. Yes, if you don't care about yourself. Let's see. Amir, yes, that's correct. If you don't care about yourself, when that person leaves, that position is just open and it's not being fulfilled. So loving yourself is what you have to know how to do first. Because what anybody else does is only an addition. It's only an addition. Self-care is acknowledging you did the best completing your task. It's self-care. Wait. That's not what I wanted to mention. So sorry about that. Self-care, I'm getting ahead of myself. So I was going to ask about how do you love yourself if you don't like yourself? To love yourself, it requires you liking yourself. Liking yourself is a process. It takes time to like yourself. It takes time to like a friend. It takes time to classify someone as a best friend, as a favorite person in your life, because you are taking time to get to know them. So do you take the time to get to know you? It's important that you take time to get to know you. Uninterrupted time. Undivided attention time. You know that kind of time you want when you are with your significant other? You want to have uninterrupted time. You want them to be paying only attention to you. You have to make that type of time with yourself to get to know you, to like you. So how do you like yourself if you don't even know who you are? That's impossible. If you don't know who you are, how do you like yourself? You can be fond of yourself. I'm fond of a shirt that I got the other day. But do I know the shirt? No. So if we think about it, like I mentioned, and I've been mentioning throughout this session, is self-care is crucial because it's a connection to yourself. It's not a coping mechanism. Self-care is not a coping mechanism. It's a lifestyle that has to continue to go on and on and on. So if you are up at 2 a.m. in the morning and you're anxious and you just so happen to get on TikTok, that's what's considered a coping mechanism. If you decide to do Netflixing, watch your favorite series when you're sad about something, life is not going your way, that's a coping mechanism. Self-care is ongoing. It's how you connect and get to know yourself. Self-care is enforcing health boundaries to respect yourself. If someone's being disrespectful, you have to enforce boundaries. You do. You enforce those boundaries because what? If I enforce these boundaries, then ultimately what I'm doing is I'm standing up for myself. I'm respecting myself. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for the roses. Thank you for inviting and sharing this to other people. Your comments down below, I am definitely reading them. So if this is making sense to you, make sure you post down below. Yes, more. Thank you. Oh gosh, the roses are wonderful. Thank you. We're going to continue talking about self-care because it's really important. And I want you to know what self-care truly looks like. So self-care is acknowledging that when you complete a task and you acknowledge yourself for doing that task, that's self-care. You might say, oh, you know what, I did a good job for the day. I got these things taken care of. And not only did I get these things taken care of, but I did an excellent job. Let me go take myself out. I'm gonna get my favorite cup of tea. I'm gonna get my favorite cup of coffee, a latte. Let me go get my favorite meal. And when you are doing this, you're being attentive to how you actually feel. When you're being attentive to how you truly feel, you're uninterrupted by life. You know, you can. Not too long ago, I went into a restaurant and I took myself out. I was proud of myself for doing a great job with being attentive to myself, because the day prior, it was really hard to be attentive to myself. I kept getting off track. And so because I was getting off track, I said, I'm taking myself out because I was disciplined. I paid attention to myself, and I'm just going to go to this restaurant for me. It's just going to be just me. And nobody else was at the restaurant by themselves, but I was. And when I was at the restaurant by myself, I was just in a world of bliss with me. A guy told me his son had told him about when he went out to eat by himself, and he was having a hard time with it because when he looked around, there were so many couples, but he was there by himself, not realizing that the relationship that should have been focused on at that time was himself, not the other people at the restaurant, because that's how you connect with yourself. Or maybe he just learned that connecting with myself is not going to another restaurant because I'm distracted by seeing the other couples. So at any rate, you have to celebrate yourself. You have to celebrate yourself. And if you don't celebrate yourself, you're giving that responsibility over to other people. When you celebrate yourself, you acknowledge the accomplishments that you've made. Anything else that somebody gives you on top of that acknowledgement, it's just an addition, because you've taken care of yourself. Thank you guys for watching, joining as we talk about the topic of self-care. I really appreciate you taking out this moment. I appreciate the roses. I appreciate you inviting people. Make sure you continue to follow me and share this information. So self-care is also therapy. Self-care is making sure you have a coach. You might need a life coach, a business coach, a relationship coach, a sex coach. You might need an intimacy coach. It's a variety of ways that you can get someone to help guide you, and it's considered self-care. Being creative individually to explore your true potential, that's self-care. Self-care is encouraging yourself, especially when you have ups and downs. You got to be able to cheer yourself on and say, I'm doing a great job. We're going to keep pushing. I'm not going to give up. I got this. Self-care is being compassionate to yourself. It's being mindful to yourself. It's giving yourself grace to adjust from the old version of you to the new version. It's embracing and learning to accept the new version of you. Self-care is listening to yourself to examine what you need and what you deserve. Society tells us that self-care is something we're supposed to give over to another person. And especially if a person is not in a relationship and they're going off of the theme of what society says, then they'll feel defected. They'll feel like, okay, something's wrong with me because I don't have somebody to love me. But it just makes the perception and understanding of self-care more difficult when you're following the trained, the definition of what society says self-care is. So for everyone that's not in a relationship, and there are some people that might be in a relationship and the aspects of self-care is not being met. And that's why it's so important for you to understand that self-care starts with you. That's why it's self-care. self-care. So most don't become interested in self-care until something drastic happens. And something drastic happens like a bad breakup, a divorce, grief. All of these terrible things go on. Thank you, Shantae. I'm so happy that you love it. So happy that you're loving it and you're listening. So self-care it's a lifestyle, and some days are better than others. While some require more discipline, and some require a lot of honesty, being effective with your honesty and also compassionate at the same time, because sometimes we'll be so critical of ourselves that we start assassinating ourselves. We step away from connecting with ourselves because we're self-sabotaging one another. So again, you might say, well, how do I start the healthcare, the self-care in a healthy manner? I would suggest for you to self-date. Yes, Shantae said daily loving herself is so important. It really is. It truly is. Thank you for that. So hiking is one way to self-date, journaling with tea, coffee, your favorite drink. You can run, you can do bike rides. You're going to connect with yourself, removed away from the world. That means everybody in it. You can't have any distractions. So you don't need a phone when you focus on self-care, because you want that undivided attention for yourself. Oh, thank you so much. That was so pretty. I love it. You want to be intentional with yourself. You want to really be out of your head. You don't want to be thinking about, oh, I got this list to do. I got this bills to pay. Oh, I have so many responsibilities. No, you can't be questioning your dating status. Self-care is paying attention to yourself, your feelings in the moment with you and only you. So this is how you build up your self-esteem about dating yourself. Thank you for that hand heart. I appreciate it. I do appreciate it. So you can take the phone with you, and you can be wrapped up, have your mind wrapped up into everything else, but you're going to be draining from your self-esteem, and you're going to get different outcomes. If you on a self date and you take your phone, and then you have a self date where you don't take a phone, it's going to be the same movements, but you're going to get different outcomes. So if you decide I need to go to a bike ride because I have tension that's going on, great. Go on the bike ride, be attentive to this. This is self-care. And while you're on the bike ride, pay attention to how you're feeling. Is the tension moving? Being physical moves the circulation. And so it's allowing you to just focus on yourself. The physical aspect helps you to get out of your head. Being in nature like this allows, wind to caress your skin. It allows the sun to bathe you and give you, the energy from the sun. Now, if you're in degrees, like 100 and something degrees, I am not expecting for you to sit out in the sun. I'd be responsible. Go to the top, let it be at the top of the morning, or let it be later on in the evening when the sun is setting, and get your energy from the sun at that point. So, but this positions you to listen to yourself, to give yourself undivided attention. So paying attention to your emotional needs is so imperative. And so you stop verbally bashing yourself when you're paying attention to your emotional needs, being compassionate, being mindful. And it helps you to build a better relationship with yourself, because now you're aware, this is how I feel when this happens. This is how I feel when that happens. This is what I don't want to happen, because it makes me feel uncomfortable. So the next thing I wanted as I prepare to conclude, is when you are focusing on self-care, do your best to embrace no as a gift. When you accept no as a gift, it allows you to prioritize your time, your schedule for your needs. You'll notice that your schedule becomes more available for yourself when somebody else tells you no. And that's why I say look at no as a gift. So if you had your mindset to take someone to the zoo and take your kids to the zoo, and then they come back and say, well, mom, dad, I really don't want to go to the zoo. There's no reason for you to get upset. You say, okay, great. Because now you have time to do what you want to do just for yourself. So if your intentions was to go to the zoo to take your child, now you can decide, I can read this book that I've been wanting to read. Go ahead and dive into the Chance series. It's available for you, but just do something for you. It's the little actions that bring together an environment for you to grow. And that's what self-care is about. You growing and being connected with yourself. Self-care is the soil you need to nourish your soul, for you to meet yourself, to blossom, to become it. Most don't know how to love themselves. Most people do not know how to love themselves, yet they prioritize loving another person. And that's why it clarifies why many have no understanding or value for self-care. I want to thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate you taking the time out for joining. Self-care is something that we all need. And I advocate this in my stories. Every story that I write, I focus on advocating about self-care. All of my characters, you learn how it's important for them to apply self-care in their life, in which my intention is for you to learn different ways and consider different ways for you to apply self-care in your life. So if you're not following me, subscribe to my channel, share this message with another person. Let me know how you're doing. Post below. Let me know how you're doing. I'm so happy that you love my cup. I appreciate that. You can get this cup from going to my website, jblissbooks.com. This cup is there for you. It's a very lovely cup. Thank you. So I'm going to repost this on my YouTube channel. So again, thank you again for joining me. Remember, self-care is how you connect with yourself. So get offline, make some time for yourself. Be intentional. Make sure this is undivided time for you, where you're uninterrupted. Try to plan an hour. If you can't plan an hour, start with 15 minutes, start with 30. Keep building up until you at least have an hour to just be with yourself, listen to yourself, so that you can learn how to be your best first date. So I'm sending you love and peaceful energy. Thank you so much. I appreciate everyone for staying, especially for the duration of the time. You enjoy the rest of your day.